I'm Midas Makes Games, and this is another week of working on my ambitious sci-fi RPG, codenamed Project Andromeda. Last week I did the GMTK Game Jam. Hey, we did really well on that, by the way, so you should go check it out. It's Tale of King Boris of Oris on itch. Link in the description. Back to the video. But before that, I was working on a combat system, which I never really finished. But what was it actually missing? Well, I got the characters to move around, which wasn't insignificant. There were two big issues that needed to be solved. The first was that the enemy AI didn't actually do anything, and the second was that moving was the only thing you could do. So I wrote some basic logic on my combat manager, which allows an attacker and a defender to speak to each other, connect their stats together, and then calculate if an attack hit, missed, or was dodged. Once I got that working, I created a small pop-up to show what the actual result was, so I had a little bit of signifiers that wasn't exclusively using the debug log, but enemies still didn't do anything. They knew it was their turn, but they didn't know what they should actually be doing. These enemies, I could give any number of potential moves. Certain enemies will have different attacks, abilities, spells, whatever. And so I needed some way for an enemy AI to understand, one, what it had, and two, what was the best thing to do in that circumstance. That's where evaluators come in. An evaluator is a special object that all it does is return a number between 0 and 100. Now, the way that it gets this number is different for each evaluator. Maybe it cares how many allies are near it. Maybe it cares how many enemies are near it, or how far away the nearest enemy is, if its skill is high. And the good thing is that I can add any number of these evaluators that I want. Every single action has a number of evaluators. I can choose how many. The more evaluators on it, the more quote-unquote intelligent the AI will be. There are more factors it'll consider before doing that action. And then for each action, what an enemy AI does is it takes all the evaluators on a certain action, averages the results, and then the highest total result for an action is the action that the enemy takes. Even with the basic system I have, where enemies can essentially only move, attack, or move and then attack, the enemy was still able to figure out which of those would be best. Moving fully if the target was out of range of a move and then attack. Moving and then attack only if that was the exact range that enemy needed, and then attacking instead if the player was already in range. Now that enemies were smart and combat could be kind of fun, it was time to start creating the first little chunk of gameplay. I started off by designing what I wanted the area to be. This area was designed to be a sort of tutorial for the player in the very first section of the game. My plan is to expand this section as more stuff is added to the game. It'll always be a good reminder to tutorialize everything that I'm adding, and it'll ensure that the tutorial, which is usually kind of a side note on some game projects, is given the time and attention it needs while still being a good intro to the game. So what I designed, your character starts out at a crash site. Their ship was shot down, and they're rescued by some soldiers of the local government. Then you go further into this jungle environment and you're ambushed by pirates. This will serve as the basic combat tutorial for the game. Once you're done with the ambush, then you head off to the base, which will be the first sort of dungeon in the game. If a player so desires, for example, if this was not their first time playing through the game, a lot of the dungeon can be skipped. You can get to the boss fight. Once the boss fight is done, the boss will just kind of be a stronger enemy, probably for now. Once the boss fight's done, you get to go out this back exit and leave. With the intro section planned out, I realized there was another thing that I wanted from dialogue. You see, right now, while the dialogue tree operates just fine as dialogue, it doesn't actually have any functionality to change anything in the environment based off of what you responded with. I have this system in Unity called scriptable variables, which allow me to create assets in my project that are saved global variables, essentially. While it took a lot of trial and error, I was able to add a new node to my dialogue graph that could take one of these scriptable variables and modify it. And just like that, now I could save what the player said or did and use that information somewhere else in my game. But before I could create any scenarios that facilitated such a system, I needed some area for the player to explore. I installed Unity's default terrain tools package and downloaded some assets off the Unity store since they were on sale, and was able to create this cool kind of jungle environment that'd be the lead up to the dungeon. Editing Midas here. Totally forgot to mention this, but the way that I set up the trees, if you weren't looking at the character at the like exactly perfect angle, it was just really hard to see them because the troops would get all in front of the camera. So I created this really cool effect because I remember that Baldur's Gate 3 did this, and I was really surprised how easy it was. I just set up a shader graph that would cause the trees and any other thing that I wanted to like dither and disappear when the camera got really close to them. And so you can see that effect in action. It looks really cool, and it was way simpler than I thought it was going to be. I also grabbed some models off of Mixamo so I could have the main character be the special astronaut girl character, have the soldiers and the pirates have this different mesh, just so that they were easy to tell apart. Hopefully soon I can get some artists on this project and I won't need to be grabbing store assets anymore. All the tools that I developed this week allowed me to create this, a small environment, an intro sequence, and getting into the first combat encounter. There's a few minor bugs, and I can't get the trees from the terrain tool to get collisions, but that's an issue for next week. I hope you guys enjoyed my little explanation of how development is coming. I'm really satisfied with how much I was able to get done this week, even though I just came off of a game jam and was truthfully a little burnt out. If you didn't enjoy the video, please do not leave a like, please do not subscribe, and leave a comment about how much you hate me. And I will see you next week. Bye bye.